It's Jay and Gwen here, and we're gearing up for another episode of Fire Drill Podcast with a special guest, mountain woman extraordinaire, Insta celebrity Holly Johnson.
She's here to talk about the importance of not waiting to have a partner to do what you want to do, how to go solo backpacking for the first time, and resisting the pressure from society to act and do things their way just because we're women. Let's go take a hike.
Welcome to Fire Drill Podcast, where side hustles, savings, and creativity lead to financial independence. With your hosts, Gwen from Fiery Millennials and Jay from Millennial Boss.
All right. Hi, everybody. We have an awesome guest on the show today. We have Holly Johnson, Miss Haldol. She is a social media influencer by weekend, night, day, but she also has a full-time job. So we wanted to bring her on to understand a little bit more about being an outdoors enthusiast and learn about it. So hi, Holly.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I also have my wonderful co-host Gwen in the house as well.
Hello.
So Holly, why don't we start by telling us a little about yourself?
Let's see. Because I'm not shy, I will go ahead and say I am 36. I live in Seattle. I'm an executive assistant for an advertising agency and a social influencer, like you said, kind of by weekend, by night, basically any other time of day when I'm not at my regular job. I am a Washingtonian native, and I absolutely love it here, although I didn't really get my appreciation for the mountains until, I guess about 9 or 10 years ago or something along those lines. But yeah, I keep very busy between, I guess, both jobs, as you put it, and then trying to balance still being able to truly enjoy the mountains, even though I've created getting into the backcountry a job.
As somebody who has grown up in the Midwest and currently lives in the Midwest, what are mountains?
What are mountains?
Yeah, you don't know what mountains are.
I only know flat things.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
In my second life, I want to be a mountain girl. And I don't know if this is even a term. Do you refer to yourself as a mountain girl or what social media influencer in the outdoor space? What is the official term?
Right. That's a good question. I guess I do refer to myself as a mountain girl. And I mean, I think that term is pretty broad, but the fact that is a passion of mine and not just something I do once or twice a year, but something I really prioritize, I think constitutes me as a mountain girl.
And for those of you who are not familiar with Holly, she has this absolutely amazing Instagram account, Miss Haldol, that I've been following for a long time now. And it shows her in these just breathtaking places with mountain landscapes. It's honestly so inspiring. And I know it's really inspired me to kind of get outdoors more and to really push myself to do hikes with better views and a little more effort. So how did you get into that? Were you always a hiker?
No, not at all. I mean, let's see, my parents took us on, and when I say us, my sister and I, on a handful of backpacking trips when I was a kid. But nothing, I mean, gosh, I can't imagine it's any more than like 6 or 7 trips growing up. So nothing super significant. And I definitely didn't find my love for the outdoors at that time in my life. I was one of those children that was kind of like, why are we here? When are we going to get there? How much further? That sort of thing. It really wasn't until I was in my mid to late 20s, and it kind of all stems from relationships. And I had my first serious relationship when I was about 22, and it lasted for several years. And I didn't really realize it at the time, but we never went and did anything. We didn't even go to the park. We didn't go hiking. We didn't go to the beach. We didn't go away for the weekend. And we were young. We didn't have a ton of money, but we didn't go do things. And I didn't realize that was something that was missing until my next relationship, which didn't last very long, but it was still just vastly different. The guy was very active, and we just kind of did more things together other than, watch movies or eat. I don't know. And I remember him taking me on a small, short local hike, and I kind of hated every minute of it, more because I was really out of shape. But then I got to the top and there was really no view. And I'm like, this is it? Anyway, we broke up shortly after that. But he had talked about wanting to take me backpacking. And I just remember when after, we broke up and I was kind of sulking and sad, but part of me was really sad that I'd lost this person to go take me to do things because I didn't have it in the previous relationship. And so it took me a couple weeks before I sort of realized if I really wanted to go do something, I didn't need anybody to take me. So I just started hiking by myself and totally, it's funny, the first hike that I went and did by myself was the same one he took me on that I hated. But I just kept doing all these local trails for about a month, like right after work. And then that just kind of got boring. So I started doing a lot of research and figuring out that there was so much more to see in Washington that I'd been missing my entire life. So it just really prompted me to get out there even more.
Now, one thing I know you do often is solo backpacking, and I really would like to do that, but I'm also terrified. And let me just preface this. I'm sometimes afraid to be alone in my house. Like, I will booby trap that thing Home Alone style on occasion. How did you kind of get over those initial fears of being alone and push yourself to do it?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say it was like super easy, but I mean, I think it helped that I started hiking alone. And even though I would, I was never really alone, there's always people out and about when you're hiking. But I think that kind of helped. And I'm probably the opposite of you. I mean, I live alone. Yes, I have a cat, but like I'm typically not afraid to be alone. I used to house sit for random strangers, just like word of mouth. And I'd go to their house and stay there by myself. And, for the most part, I didn't find it to be terrifying. So I'm sort of different, I guess, in that sense. But backpacking solo, I do it a fair amount, but I still get out with friends or family more often than not. But I just wanted to make sure that I was never chained to somebody else's schedule, so that if I really wanted to go backpacking and somebody couldn't make it, or I couldn't find somebody to go with, or whatever it was, that if I still wanted to go, I could do it. So that was kind of on my radar, I guess, for a while. But I mean, I started hiking by myself, just day hikes, and it took me a few years to kind of work up to the solo outdoor trip. But I absolutely love them. I think they're the best ones.
As somebody who has been more or less fiercely independent for the last couple of years, I totally feel you on the whole, like, well, nobody can do it with me, so I'm going to go do it by myself and skip all you people because I'm going to go have fun and do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of sad that it takes us so long to like figure that one out.
It's totally true.
But
I think there's like a huge social stigma against doing things by yourself, It's like, she's doing this thing by herself. Why isn't she out with friends? Does she not have any friends? Is she weird? What's wrong with her?
Exactly. No, I mean, and there's times that I kind of get frustrated, I think, and not to say I have so many friends, but over the course of the last few years, especially with social media now involved, I've gone from having no outdoor friends to having so many that I actually have to sometimes just say I'm unavailable so that I can get out by myself, because I look for that sort of therapy.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure the outdoors enthusiast social media presence community is similar. Gwen and we became friends through meeting with having blogs, things like that. So it's been really fun to connect with people that are like-minded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay,
yeah.
Once in real life.
Yeah. We've only met once. Okay. When you put it that way, we're going to meet up again soon.
I mean, we talk all the time, but yeah, we've only actually met for like 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes. No, I can totally relate. That's kind of very similar. And there are so many other outdoor females out there that I would consider to be a friend, and yet we haven't ever met yet, that kind of thing. But you develop these relationships that actually seem very meaningful, even if you haven't been face to face. Yeah, because you just kind of get each other.
Totally. So I was looking at your Instagram account today, and I saw that you had 293,000 followers at the time of this recording, which is nuts. And it's awesome that people are so into this. And I think part of it is the fact that women or whoever, they want to do these things. They may not have someone to do them with. And like your story is really inspiring to them. at what point did you bring the social media part into it, and how did you grow it into a business?
Right. So let's see. I mean, I probably started hiking, we'll say I was about 27. And then it was probably only about 3 years ago that I think I had this, maybe a little over, like 3.5, that I had this desire to sort of turn my Instagram account into something that was just outdoor focused. And to be really honest, I hadn't seen it done yet from a female perspective. Not to say I'm the first outdoor female, but by any means, and definitely even not the most badass by a long shot. But I didn't necessarily see female pages that were solely dedicated, I guess, to the outdoors. So I wanted to do that, but that wasn't necessarily, even in the beginning, I didn't have goals, I guess, to turn it into a business. That didn't come until however long later, when I probably had about 10 to 15,000 followers or so. And even at that stage, it was still so small to me. I mean, it seemed mind blowing that I had that many people who cared or wanted to see where I was going. But I still, at that point, just looked at it like, oh, I hope a company will like send me a free tent.
Right, exactly.
So I wasn't even looking like to monetize. I was just like, how can I not spend my own money on gear and things like that? Because that stuff's expensive. So I kind of just looked at it as just like that. And then I had some small offers here and there, nothing that was super exciting. But I did get an offer through Eddie Bauer to do one of their social media campaigns, which was like 3 or 4 months. And this was when I had about 50,000 followers. That was also the mark of where I started my website. And that came from kind of just wanting to round myself out a little bit, tell people my story, how I got started, just so that, you know, if there were women out there that were inspired by me for whatever reason, that they could go and learn a little more and maybe find my story somewhat relatable. I mean, there's nothing extravagant about it, but I think that's kind of what makes it special in a weird way, if
Right.
that makes sense. But,
yeah, no, that's the beauty of it. It's relatable.
I ran out of fingers to count how many more followers you have than me.
Gwen, so one thing I've noticed, and Holly, you have to tell us if this is true. When someone is like a really big Instagram presence, their Instagram is branded. It's not like, here's my dog, here's my breakfast that I ate. It's very specific. Do you really try to stay on topic, and do you have like a personal side Insta for the silly things about your life?
I do have a personal little Instagram, and I never use it, to be really honest with you. I mean, the way I started my first Instagram page, I mean, the Miss Haldol page started very similarly to just like anybody else's kind of personal thing, where it had a smattering of some hikes, you know, a holiday party, a birthday, you know, a dinner, a drink, whatever it was, high heels. So it had a mixture, and it just wasn't until I realized that even though I had a super small following and it was pretty much only people that were friends with me, that the hiking pictures, and when I started figuring out what the heck hashtags even meant, that those tended to do better than anything else. So that was also something that kind of nudged me, like, well, maybe I'll just focus on, you know, the outdoors. I mean, I'm going on tons of hikes. I have lots of content, and I saw several feeds out there, whether it was outdoor specific or whatever it was, that I could tell that there was like a cohesive theme with what they posted about, the quality of the photos, the editing style. So, I mean, that just kind of all resonated with me. And yeah, I had this kind of desire, I guess, to make my page sort of look like that. But that does mean, at least, not to say I can't post whatever I want, but you kind of feel that you can't post whatever you want. If I posted something more personal from a party or something, I mean, I just know it would throw so many people off. I'd probably lose followers. It would tank. And not that that necessarily matters all that much, but once you start viewing it as a business, then you have to think about those things.
Right. That makes sense. So right now you're working full time, but you're doing this in whatever time you have available. That's pretty amazing. Do you have any plans to ever try to pursue this full time?
I mean, not to say it won't happen at some point, but no, I have no plan to pursue it full time. And I mean, the thing is I think social media is just such a roller coaster, and you never know how long Instagram is going to be the hot ticket. And I'm glad I have a blog and a website as well. I just think it's an unstable environment. So I'm perfectly happy with my kind of regular job that I have and this other regular life, and that it just is so different, I think, from social media. And it kind of keeps me grounded in a way that I prefer, to not get caught up in all this social media drama. And I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous sometimes.
Have you found it difficult to get new scenery for pictures for your Instagram? I can imagine that you constantly need to be traveling to new and different places.
Yes and no. I mean, I feel super lucky that I have Washington as my backdrop, because there's still so much of it that I haven't even seen yet. The problem is sometimes you need multiple days to kind of get to these amazing places. And sometimes I only have a weekend. So I do, especially this summer, I kind of feel like I've recycled so many places, but I'm also not really looking to do much that I'm not familiar with. I broke my ankle at the end of last year, and I had surgery at the beginning of this year. So I've also spent the last 7 months kind of getting my ankle's strength back and learning to hike with a bionic body part,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. But yeah, there are definitely times that I look at other accounts and I'm like, man, I need to go places. I need to go explore more, but I just don't have the freedom by choice.
I think that
to go
that would probably,
everywhere.
I think that would probably like inspire you to actually like get back on your feet faster, because you're like,
Oh,
I can't
absolutely.
take time off. I have people that are depending on me to post pretty pictures of mountains and trees and whatever else Washington looks like.
Yeah,
So I think that would be inspirational or motivational.
I had, absolutely. There were a number of reasons why I wanted to recover fast. And one of them was to get back out there, because essentially the second job that I had, once I broke my ankle, it was game over, at least temporarily. I couldn't accept new campaigns and I couldn't go get new content. So I spent 3 months, maybe more, posting old photos, things for the most part, stuff that I hadn't posted prior, but just finding other, pictures that I had taken the summer before and that sort of thing. So I spent 3 months kind of posting old stuff and just trying to keep myself motivated. But I just really wanted to have the fastest recovery that I could possibly have. Like, just for myself, it was this kind of challenge. It was the need to get healthy on a totally different level and to, get my body in recovery mode.
I can imagine.
So that kind of was also something, though, that was eye-opening, because I was so blessed and happy at that time that I still had my regular job, that I could go to work and I could get my paycheck. I had good benefits. And honestly, I think I would have been panicking my face off if I had been solely relying on social media as a form of income.
Right. So if someone out there,
another reason why I don't.
Right. If someone out there is an aspiring full-time outdoors enthusiast / mountain girl, how do you actually go about? So you said the campaigns approach you, but how would you go about actively getting more business for yourself?
Let's see. Yeah. So for the most part, I would put my email address on my page and just kind of wait to see what came to me. And prior to kind of getting the second job part of it, though, I think when I told you, I was like, I just hope I get a free tent. I remember at that time, and it was probably between like having 15 and 25,000 followers, I was actually reaching out to companies and saying, hey, I'm Holly. I have this many followers. I love the outdoors. Do you have interest in doing any kind of like trade work or that sort of thing? So I did end up getting all the gear that I wanted and then some. And it kind of, I think, also put me on the radar a little bit for these outdoor companies. So that was good. But I haven't really done much to seek out my own, I guess, campaigns necessarily at this point, because I've had enough work come through that keeps me plenty busy on the weekends, and I can't really take on much more than I'm already doing. And then a few months ago, I actually was approached by a manager. So I now have a social media manager, and she for the most part, handles all the communication and negotiations with brands. And she also does brand outreach. So I'm kind of more hands off, and I just go hiking and I go get the content and post and that sort of thing. So it's become a lot easier in that regard, because the communications and the negotiations are usually what take the longest.
Yeah, creating systems is huge. I bet that takes the stress out of it.
It does, yes. And also something I didn't seek out at all. It was something I kind of thought about. I'd heard that people had these agents or managers and that sort of thing. And I thought, that might be nice someday. And it was. So I feel very glad that I have her in my life right now.
That's really awesome.
So I want to ask you two more questions before we close off here. The first one, I want to talk about your blog post where you write, "Is your adventure more real than my adventure?" And it's about sort of the backlash that social media outdoors enthusiasts get online because maybe they're staging some of their shots or they're posing a little bit. What is your take on that?
Well, from that particular standpoint, it was more of an attack on, I think, women and how they look in the outdoors. And there's been another article that has come out very similar to the first one that came out a couple of years ago. And it just seems to be this constant struggle between, quote unquote, the real outdoor girl who looks like garbage or something outside, and then the one who maybe, finger combs her hair and shakes it out and then takes a photo or something along those lines. So my take on it is that it's absolutely ridiculous, that it's this environment that feels like it's so inclusive and then also can feel exclusive depending on how you present yourself in the outdoors. That if you give any sort of shit as to how you look or how a photo turns out, that you care less about being there, which I just don't think is the case at all. So I kind of struggle with that. As far as staging shots, I think it sort of depends on what it is. I mean, obviously, like most of my photos are somewhat staged. I have to set up a camera on a tripod and I have a remote shutter. So you're not seeing these natural moments necessarily. I'm creating something for the viewer to hopefully connect with. But in terms of staging shots, I do draw the line where it's something maybe that looks dangerous or something that's illegal. There's a lot of struggle right now with people setting up tents in, places they shouldn't, or just illegal areas to camp. And then they post that and it sends a very wrong message to people that don't know otherwise.
Like the account, You Did Not Sleep Here?
On what it is.
Is that the account?
Yes.
That one's really funny. So there are a bunch of really great accounts that I have a list of awesome accounts on my website of mountain accounts I follow, including Miss Haldol. I follow Chelsea Kwai, Moon Mountain Man, a bunch of them. But I also follow You Did Not Sleep Here, and it's hilarious.
It is hilarious. It absolutely is hilarious. And it's definitely done in jest. I mean, I think we all get a little chuckle out of it. And at the same time, part of me wishes it might be a little more educational, and not just look at this ridiculous place this person probably didn't. Just because I think that's the part that's missing, is that although it may look ridiculous, some of these places you legitimately cannot camp. It is illegal. It comes with fines. It comes with damaging fragile environments and ecosystems. And so then it gets blasted all over social media, and you just have all these people, thousands and thousands of people who don't know any better and may want to go recreate that. So it causes a problem.
I think that point, and then the point you made earlier about women and how much pressure is put on what they look like or don't look like, how much they care or don't care, and that extends into work or whatever realm. So I'm really glad that we talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously all over it's everywhere. It doesn't just pertain to the outdoors. It's just kind of sometimes surprising that it does.
Totally. Gwen, do you want to kick off the last question?
Absolutely. All right, Holly, what is your wildest dream?
My wildest dream?
Wildest dream. If you could have anything, if you could do anything, if you could be anything, what would it be?
I feel like this one should have been given to me prior.
No, we like off the cuff.
Oh,
go crazy.
Okay.
Be candid.
My wildest
have
dream.
Fun. Would you like to be invisible?
Oh,
Would you
gosh.
like X-ray vision? Would you like to be able to teleport? Would you like to be married to Stephen Amell? I mean, what do you want?
What are we talking here? Oh my gosh.
Could be anything. Like your kookiest, craziest, weirdest dream.
Number one bucket list item.
My bucket list item probably doesn't even sound that fantastic. It just sounds like some ridiculous little, like, I don't even want to say fairy tale, but I just want to find a person and I want to get an 4Runner and I want to make an adventure mobile and I want to take off and go travel and drive around and be dirty and just, I don't know. That's not very wild, but that is kind of
It sounds pretty great to me. And
It sounds pretty amazing, and I think you should make another Instagram about that trip.
Yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't help that I don't date, so my dream is a little wild, but whatever.
Yeah, maybe you're a little bit busy. You got a lot going on right now.
It's going to make it more difficult, not going to lie. But I did find my boyfriend online through our blogging community, so it's possible. It's definitely possible. Just keep your eyes open.
I've given up any sort of online dating. Not to say I wouldn't meet somebody through social media or whatnot, but I don't waste my time with this Tinder bullshit and Bumble and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, thank you. I'm way too busy for that garbage. It is. But I have this motto that I'd rather find the right guy in 10 years than the wrong guy tomorrow. So
Amen.
It'll all happen when it's supposed to happen. And then we're going to get a 4Runner and then we're going to deck it out and go, or maybe, I don't know, some adventure van, but I just want an adventure mobile.
But you need a dog that like leaps out of it, like some golden, that you can take pictures of and have it run around in a river and be amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Holly.
I don't know. I'll think of something wilder someday, but that's what I got right now.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I know this has been super fun for both Gwen and I. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Go to our website, firedrillpodcast.com, to continue the discussion and get the link to our private Facebook group.
If you like us, leave us a review on iTunes. If you're like me, you have no idea how to do that. So, in the podcast app or in iTunes, search for Fire Drill Podcast, find it, click the reviews tab, and write something to make my mother proud of me. We read every single review and want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for making this podcast possible.